Hi guys, welcome to Designing Aloud episode 2, and today we have Rhiddhit with us, and we are very excited. We are very grateful for all the support that we have gotten for the episode 1, and that's how Rhiddhit, and he insisted, and we were really excited because he is so good and he's working with me at Microsoft. I'm new to UX design, and Rhiddhit has been guiding me throughout my journey, so I thought bringing him will be a good insight, experience for all of us. So yeah, welcome Rhiddhit.
Hello, Rhiddhit.
Hi, Krishna. Hi, Tanuja. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so Rhiddhit is a musician, he's a poet, he's a writer, and also he's a UX designer. He did his master's from National Institute of Design. Before that, he was an architect, and now he's working on neuro-inclusive designs. So Rhiddhit, can you please tell me, like, how did you decide to get into UX design and
Yeah,
in design, to be specific?
yeah. So I think it actually started back when I was in school, even though I didn't realize it. Okay, so my parents are both doctors. My sister is a doctor as well. And there was this pressure on me as well to either become a doctor or an engineer, right? But I knew that when I was in school, there was something sort of different about me. All my friends, they were really focused on classes, they were attending all these coaching centers. And for them, it seemed like they were getting good grades, so was I, but I was having to put in twice or thrice as much effort than they were giving in, right, for the same amount of grades. But one thing that I was really good at that, everyone appreciated a lot was music. Okay. Music was one thing, and creative writing was another thing, writing short stories, essays, poems,
So did
right?
you learn
So,
music, or was it like
yeah.
it
So
came?
I learned for a bit. I learned piano, when I was very young, and then I got really excited. Wanted to learn guitar. I learned guitar by myself from YouTube. Then I learned bass guitar, and it just sort of, I think it introduced this culture of, learning what excites you, right?
Yeah.
That came at a very young age for me. I realized I didn't want to maybe solve problems from Dog or whatever. At that time, when my friends were doing that, I was playing guitar, right?
Hmm.
But yeah, so I wanted to really do something creative with my life. I knew that that was where I, that was what I was passionate about. But at that time, of course, your parents are like, no, do something in science, do something
Yeah.
science related, right? Uh, and so I started trying to figure out, okay, what is science related but creative,
Hmm.
right? At one point, I was like, okay, I'll do mechanical engineering because I want to design motorbikes or I want to design cycles, right? And maybe if I do mechanical engineering, I can go for that. Then I
Yeah.
switched to electronics and communication engineering. I wanted to do that because in my head, it was like, if I do this, I can design robots,
Yeah.
right? So this idea of design was always there. But I was not aware of this design as a field at that time. Fortunately, I came across architecture, right? And that seemed like a good combination. You have this civil engineering aspect to it. Like the entrance exam had mathematics in it. I don't really understand why, but my parents saw that and they were like, okay, he has to study maths. That's
And
okay,
most of
right?
it, I think most of all, it has drawing. Like that is what we wanted to do,
Yeah,
right? Actually, and create something. So
yeah. I mean, it did have drawing. That I was not comfortable with that, to be honest, right?
okay.
I mean, I did take drawing classes as a child, right? But it was not something that I practiced at the level of music or anything like that. It was there. I could draw, but I didn't have that passion for drawing. A lot of people think that if you want to get into design or any other creative field, you need to be really passionate about drawing.
Yeah.
But I mean, drawing is a big part. I think the more important part is problem solving, right? You need to be passionate about problem solving, right? At any level, it could be problems related to daily life, it could be problems related to business, right? But if you feel that you're someone who is constantly looking out for problems to solve, and innovating in that way, I think, that's a good start for wanting to become a designer, right? And I think that is what, like I excelled in my architecture exam as well. There was a aptitude test, which was focused on problem solving. They had puzzles, they had little questions, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
So I did really well in that, and luckily I got into SPA Bhopal, and I was super excited, and it was such a different experience from what I had experienced at school. You know, we went in, it was all about drawing, it was all about being free, expressing yourself. We didn't really have books to study from, and all my other friends in engineering, they were studying, questions and stuff. So I really like that difference. Yeah. No offense to engineers, they're very important.
Yes.
But for me, I really love that change in the method in which something was being taught. But again, as I started getting deeper into architecture, second year, third year, again, some of the struggles started coming up again, that I faced in school. I wasn't able to focus on subjects that didn't really interest me, no matter how hard I tried, right? I ended up, you know, really obsessing over a few subjects that I loved, but the rest of the subjects, I was like, okay, I'm just not going to go to class because I can't focus, right?
Yeah.
And this was something that was there in, school as well. But I started looking for ways to learn outside the curriculum because of that. I started getting into architecture competitions, exploring what people in MIT and Harvard were doing through architecture and seeing if I could learn from that. And I think that learning outside the curriculum was also very important, right? And which really helped later on when gave the exam for NIT as well. Because I was reading books about psychology, I was reading books about sociology, which weren't part of the curriculum, but I was interested in that. Creative thinking as well. All these books, you don't need to study them for architecture, right?
Yeah.
They're not, no one asks you to read them, but
Yeah.
that's what interested me. But by third year, I was like, okay, this isn't working out for me. Maybe I might have chosen the wrong line. I had told myself that in fourth year we have internship,
Right.
and I want to get into a firm abroad. I want to experience what architecture is like, the architecture culture is like abroad.
Mhm.
And if I don't like that as well, then maybe I need to think of what else I can do. So fortunately, I got into a firm called Takashi Niwa Architects in
Mhm.
Vietnam, in Hanoi, Vietnam. And Takashi Niwa-san, he's a brilliant architect. I was really
ये
lucky to get into.
ये कैसे अप्लाई आपने कैसे किया और कैसे आपका शॉर्ट लिस्टिंग उधर
हाँ,
हुआ? ये सब कैसे
नहीं
हुआ?
तो हाँ, तो बेसिकली आर्किटेक्चर में भी वी नीडेड टू मेक अ पोर्टफोलियो ऑफ आवर वर्क. ओके. एंड वो पोर्टफोलियो, इट्स जस्ट 4 or 5 projects that you have to make, but a lot depends on what you choose to present in that portfolio. ठीक है? तो
हम्म,
a lot of people decide to focus on the execution part of architecture. कि look, I know how to convert a drawing of a building into something that you can execute. You
हम्म,
this the the structure will be suitable for building and stuff.
हम्म,
But again, like I said, I was more interested in the creative aspect, the concept aspect of architecture, कैसे, how I came to an idea, the storytelling, the cinematography of, like that, creating cinematic spaces. So that's what I focused on in my portfolio.
हम्म,
And, like I feel that my style from the very beginning has been very minimal and very focused, architecture maybe and design maybe, because I think that is just how my brain works. I don't like giving excess information which may not be required. Okay. And that resonated with my like the principal architect, Niwasan,
हम्म,
right? So उधर गया, and I went with a very open mind, ये सोच के कि whatever I am asked to do, I will do it and I will learn from it, because this is my chance to see if I actually love this field or not.
Yeah.
And from the very first day, I fell in love. It was so different. It was such a different learning atmosphere, such a friendly atmosphere, and so much talk was there behind the idea of a design, right? How do you come to a design? Design is not just the execution, right? It's solving a problem in a creative way. Okay. And I just remember one instance, which really changed my life. Okay, so in architecture college, of course, and any architecture college, you're taught to design in a certain way. Pehle, you create a bubble diagram in which you sort out spaces. You figure out areas, how much area is required for different spaces, and then you create a plan from that. You create sections and all that. Okay, but he told me कि इतना मत सोचो. Okay, don't research so much. You have 22 years of experience in your life, and your brain is, you should trust your brain to do what it does from that 22 years of experience. So he told me ki aise, just come up with as many iterations as possible without thinking, and then go back and analyze it. And that was my first introduction to a proper design method, जो अभी हम double diamond process बोलते हैं ना, कि diverge converge. I think that was also a sort of diverging and converging. ठीक है, इतना iterations बनाओ and all that. So I
So,
guess उधर से
एक layman language में, so you learned what is design, and like
yeah,
a brief outline of it. But then, how did you decide, okay, fine, I learned this course for 4 years, now I am going to NID? And how did that shift
right.
happen? Like, ekdam se
Yeah,
thought
that
came to you or what? Yeah.
yeah, that shift happened, I guess, after I came back. I realized, during my internship that there was a lot more to learn about thinking about design, right?
Yeah.
And I decided I want to teach whatever I could to, whoever I could in India. So, a couple of friends and I, we put together this workshop series where we would talk about the thought behind designs. We taught people how to express their architecture for their portfolio using graphic design methods, using storytelling and all that. And through that, we ourselves had to do a lot of research, right? We had to understand ki storytelling कैसे होता है, right? What is storytelling? How do we tell a story through visuals, through information graphics, right? Through icons, through logos. This isn't taught in architecture, but it was something that we felt like I felt after my internship was very important, right?
Yeah.
तो हाँ, उधर से I started also analyzing a lot of architecture competition sheets. कि हाँ, when we look at these architecture competition sheets, their ideas are good, but then it's not something that is out of the ordinary, something that is super extremely innovative. ऐसे कुछ नहीं है. So I was like, okay, what is it that's helping these, architecture like sheets win competitions? So I analyzed like 50, 60 of those and started finding patterns in how the information was organized through visuals, through text, right? And I think वो था मेरा starting for information design, right? Okay, understanding how to put information in a manner that is convincing, tells a story, is human, right? You're not just putting plans and sections on a sheet, right? You can't just do that to, convey your thought to the person on the other side, right? You have to, really curate and orchestrate that information. Okay.
Right.
But don't you
Yeah.
think information design is just everywhere? Even the BJP posters that we see, and there's a
I
business
do.
holding a cylinder and Modi ji ka picture, and it just communicates like on point.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Information design is everywhere. In fact, information design, it's a combination of three things. It's a combination of architecture, it's a combination of education, and it's a combination of graphic design. These three things, I am currently doing UX design right now, but at the core of it, it is a sort of communication design, right?
Yeah.
And it is everywhere. It's not necessary that if you talk about information, it means data visualization. That's one part.
Yeah.
Information design could be instructional illustrations. It could be these posters that you talk about, right?
I think
It
even
it
the
is.
metro का जो navigation है, how
uh,
you like how we perceive कि okay, this is a female washroom का icon, this is a male washroom का
yeah,
icon. That is also information design, right?
that is also information design. Yes, like navigation, maps, designing maps. All this is part of information design, right? And a lot of this, it was part of my architecture too. I just didn't realize that at that time that this is information design. I
Okay,
thought
I
it
have
was
a
just
question
architecture.
for you. What do you
Yeah.
think is a bad information design?
That's a very good question. I think bad information design is design in which you can't convert data into knowledge, right? A lot of people believe that, okay, you need to give as much data as possible, that is what is gonna matter, right? But what is the use of giving information if people can't utilize it, if people can't understand it, right? I think in NID we were taught for information becomes knowledge and then knowledge becomes wisdom, right? That is the purpose of information design, right?
Yeah.
But you know, I think if that information can't be converted into knowledge, or even if some people can convert that information into knowledge but others can't, then that's still bad information design for me. I think it's very important that you create something inclusive. You design information to be inclusive, right?
Yeah.
So
तो
yeah.
फिर अभी इंफॉर्मेशन डिजाइन जब आपको पता चला, जब आपने सब आर्किटेक्चर कंपटीशन के एंट्रीज एनालाइज किए और उसके बाद में आपने एक पैटर्न ढूंढा उसमें से, उसके बाद क्या हुआ? उसके बाद से इंफॉर्मेशन डिजाइन आपको कैसे पता चला कि ये फील्ड एग्जिस्ट करती है और इस फील्ड में होता क्या है? आपने डिसीजन कैसे
तो
लिया कि
हाँ,
आपको इंफॉर्मेशन डिजाइन करना है?
नहीं तो even after that architecture competition and we started getting some success in architecture competitions, my aim was to study masters in architecture. Okay, not from India, from Harvard or MIT. And that is what I was preparing my portfolio for. But फिर like I thought, ठीक है, why not? My friends are giving GATE का exam, and then some of them started talking about NID and SEED, and I was like, अच्छा ठीक है, ये क्या होता है? Right. So I started looking into that and I saw, okay, there's this thing called interaction design. There's this thing called information design. There's new media design, strategic design management. And it was like someone had burst a bubble, right? Ki, bhai, architecture was, it's not the only creative thing. There's
Yeah.
so many different directions in which you can go in. And that really got me thinking. So isliye I started searching into, which of these NID like if I want to give an NID exam, which of these really seem to align with my interests? And information design mein jab dekha tha, on the website it talked about narrative, it talked about storytelling, it talked about communication, and
Which
it
website
instantly
are
struck
you
a chord.
talking about?
NID का जो website है ना, the portal in which you have to apply for the exams, तो उसमें you have little summaries of what people do in interaction design, what people do in information design, right? So interaction and information design are the two that really stuck out to me. And although I personally feel that if I had done interaction design, it seemed very exciting to me. It was a very new area for me that we had always imagined when we were doing architecture competitions, but never thought कि ऐसे लोग करते हैं, right? They actually focus on this thing. Information design, on the other hand, was something that aligned well with what I'd already done.
Yeah.
And analyzing architecture competitions, the storytelling, all this was written in the introduction. And I was like, I got really excited. I'm like, I told my friend, भाई इसमें देख भाई storytelling सिखाएंगे ये लोग. Like I'm definitely applying for this, right? So that is a thing. That's what got me excited, right? And but I just so at this point we had to write an SOP, okay? And for information design, for interaction design, we had to write uh, what is it that we want to do.
Right.
And at the beginning also I said ki I struggled, with school. I couldn't focus, right? And again in college I couldn't focus. And at this time, at the end of college was when I came to know about something called ADHD, right?
Yeah.
And it's a neurodiversity जिसमें people struggle with time management, with focus, with concentration, paying attention to one thing, they're jumping from one idea to another, right? And I realized that, people with ADHD, dyslexia, autism, right? They like process information in a different way, right?
Yeah.
Whereas people are always teaching, information design or creating information, data in a way that is meant for neurotypicals, as we would say, people who are really good at processing information. So
Yeah.
this is what I talked about in my SOP. Like if I were to get into NID, right, if I were to pursue information design, this would be one of my areas of focus. I want to understand how to design for people with dyslexia, autistic individuals, or people with ADHD, right?
Yeah. So one tip that you would want to give people who are supposed to write SOPs for getting into NID.
Oh, for getting into NID, I feel the most important thing is understanding yourself and believing in your own journey. So I think, a lot of people feel that, okay, maybe if I write this one thing, or if I maybe mention data visualization, information design के SOP में मेरा हो जाएगा. But ऐसे नहीं है. Like you have to understand what your background is, what your story is, what you have learned, and how that relates to information design, right?
Yeah.
And only then does your statement of purpose become something genuine and not fabricated,
राइट.
right?
तभी वो
So I think
पैशन
that,
दिखता है अंदर का. तब
that is, so that passion is very important. I think that passion is what drives most people at NID, right? Sabke paas, like this, everyone has some passion project or some vision that they want to fulfill, right? And without that vision, you will be lost, especially at NID, because I feel NID is a place that wants you to structure your own design projects, and they want you to uh, take initiative, right?
Yeah.
Find your own problems to solve. It's not like an like a architecture college. Like in my architecture college, we would be given a brief, like, okay, design a hospital, right? Or
Yeah.
we would be told design a museum. In NID, it's like design what you want to design. This
Yeah.
is the theme, right? And so I feel that passion is really important as a way to orient yourself
And
with the
how did
design work.
you prepare your portfolio? Like, what was your process?
So yeah, so like had been making my portfolio for architecture, right? But again, like I didn't when I had to make my portfolio for NID, there was one thought in my mind, and that was I want to put myself out there, and if I'm rejected after putting myself out there, I'll be fine, right? I don't want to do something that is, like searching on YouTube how to crack NID, what portfolio, right? And I make something that will get me into NID, but then when I'm in NID, I feel like I don't belong there because I did not, you know, put who I
Yeah.
am in the portfolio, right? So I had been making my architecture portfolio. Usme I decided to add a few more things, right? I had during the lockdown period, I had recorded a song with two of my friends and we put it on YouTube. So you know, uh, my friend had designed the album cover. तो मैं वो डाल दिया like एक QR code डाल दिया of that like ये लो, right? Another thing I did was that the portfolio, this was my second portfolio, right? तो मैं पहले portfolio का analysis किया था कि अच्छा when people are flipping through this portfolio, which page are they spending most time on, right? And why are they spending that much time on that
ये
page?
ये जो
ठीक है.
रिव्यू आपने किया था, ये किसके साथ किया था? कैसे, मतलब जनरल लोगों को दे दिया था या अपने जान पहचान वालों को?
नहीं, फ्रेंड्स एंड फैमिली को दिया था, राइट?
अच्छा.
तब आई डिडंट नो अबाउट स्टफ लाइक यूजर सेगमेंटेशन, चूजिंग योर यूजर्स. आई जस्ट थॉट कि आई वांट टू सी हाउ पीपल आर रिस्पोंडिंग टू माय पोर्टफोलियो. ठीक है,
Yeah.
तो whoever was close, I asked them to go through my portfolio and tell me what they found interesting. तो इसका एक visualization create करके डाला था, right, in my portfolio, like an analysis of my previous portfolio. And my aim there was to show कि in design it's very important that you get feedback and
राइट.
criticism,
राइट. दैट्स अ वेरी नाइस वे
improve
टू
on
गेट
that.
फीडबैक. वो बहुत सही तरीका है ये फीडबैक लूप चालू करने के लिए, आइट्रेशन का.
Yeah. And
हाँ.
also, I feel in NID, designers will be checking out your portfolio. There will be no layman sitting in front of you
Mm.
because there will be just
Yeah,
faculties and head of the departments, and they know what is genuine and what is not. So it's not
yeah.
like you see a project and you just structure something just to get into NID because they know design better than us.
Yeah, that is, yeah.
ये भी
I
है ना.
was very surprised.
हाँ.
हाँ.
पोर्टफोलियो बनाना भी खुद एक डिजाइन प्रोजेक्ट है ना. तो अगर आपका पोर्टफोलियो एकदम सही वर्क कर रहा है तो इसका मतलब ये भी होता है कि मतलब काफी आइटरेशंस के थ्रू वो जा चुका है, तो उसमें भी आपका दिखता है काम.
Yeah, that is also true. But I would say कि, like if I look back at my portfolio that I made then,
Mm-hmm.
So it is not the best in terms of graphic design. It is not the best in terms of information design.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, I was very proud of it, right? But I'm sure that when the professors saw my portfolio, they realized कि हाँ this guy needs to learn a bit more graphic design and stuff. But at the end of the day, what they talked to me most about was, like uh, problem solving and research, right?
Yeah.
So एक project था. Um, that project was a center of eco culture in Kolkata.
Mm-hmm.
And for that project, I had studied the rural communities of West Bengal. I had studied different post-colonial and pre-colonial settlements in India. And like that design language I had converted into a center of eco culture,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And I, there was a theoretical aspect of it, systems design aspect of it, which one of the professors, Dr. Baral, was very interested in. And he started asking me a lot of questions on just that. Like, okay, is this something superficial that you've done and studied and not really understood, or have you actually deep dived into it? So
Yeah.
fortunately for me, like that was something I had really deep dived into, uh, and something I was really passionate about. So it felt, when you're passionate about something and when you meet someone else who's got that knowledge, it doesn't feel like an interview. It feels like a conversation. You feel
Yes.
very excited that, someone's understanding what I've done. And to be honest, he understood it more than a lot of the architecture faculties had as well, because it was a part of sociology and, all social systems, which is not taught in architecture. So that was another thing. But yeah, all of this is actually a part of information design. Even in information design, we are taught about system design, right? I didn't know it at that time, but of course, Dr. Baral had, picked up on that. Okay, he's done something in system design for architecture, so let's deep dive into that, right? But again, at the end of the day, not everyone needs to have done something from system design, for example, to get into information design. At the end of the day, it is about connecting whatever you have done to information design,
Mm-hmm.
right?
I
Whether
have
you're
another this question for you. So, okay, fine. You had a portfolio and obviously you got into NID. But then how did you choose your projects that you were doing at NID? Okay, fine. As a
yeah.
design project, which was the project that you chose?
Yeah. For me, so I decided I would put my thesis project, which I had a lot of research in, and I put two of my competition projects as well, architecture competition projects, in which we had got like top 10 or top 25 in the world. But here the trick was, instead of explaining what the project was, I explained how I put all the information on the sheet, right?
Yeah.
Why did I put this image here? Why did I put this piece of text here? So I use the architecture project, but sort of transformed it into an
Mm-hmm.
information design project, right?
Oh.
Just for this for NID. Then of course the music thing, the music production, and the previous portfolio analysis, that also I specifically did for the NID portfolio, information design, right? And then I did put some old projects of mine from first year or second year at
Mm-hmm.
the end to show, okay, look, I am someone who grows. I was not like this when I first joined architecture,
Mm-hmm.
and learning and growing and, through
Mm-hmm.
iterations, through failures, through mistakes is who I am, right? So that is why, just glimpses of my previous work also I put at the end, right?
So you mean to say that if somebody is building their portfolio, they need not to put everything that is perfect, but also it should talk about their growth as a designer or a
It, yeah, it should talk about the growth. It should talk about, even if they've done previous work which is not in, the like field that they're applying for, how does it connect to the field that they're applying for? Okay, like if you're a graphic from a graphic design background applying to information design, how does that graphic design connect to information design,
yeah.
right? Uh, right? So that connection between two streams, if you're changing streams, that the growth and of course your personality, right? a really good example of this personality aspect was from a friend's portfolio. He was also from SPA Bhopal. Okay. And he got into retail experience design this year. And he's from Kanpur in Uttar Pradesh. So this was actually his third attempt. And the first two attempts, he was very, he was restraining himself. He was like, I need everything to be perfect to be able to get into NID, right? But in the third year, when he was attempting, he was so fearless. He was like, होगा तो होगा, नहीं होगा तो नहीं होगा.
Huh.
I'm just gonna be myself,
Yeah.
right? And he was like, he did something really crazy. He put पान का जो stains होते हैं ना,
हाँ
पूरा पोर्टफोलियो में वो कर दिया था फोटोशॉप पे.
हाँ
एंड ही इज लाइक, भाई मैं कानपुर से हूँ, तो ऐसे ऐसे मैं करूंगा, ये मेरा
हाँ
ह्यूमर है. एंड ही इज अ वेरी ह्यूमरस गाय. तो एंड इस
Um,
बार वेरी लाइक इंटरव्यू में पूछा उसको, भाई ऐसे क्यों कर दिया, राइट? एंड ही वाज लाइक, मैं ऐसे, मैं ह्यूमरस हूँ, मैं फनी हूँ ऐसे, एंड मेरे लिए दिस इज सिंबलिज्म ऑफ कानपुर, तो इसलिए किया. नहीं अच्छा नहीं लगा तो आई कांट डू एनीथिंग. सो दे वर वेरी इम्प्रेस्ड कि इतना fearless है. So personality is also important. If you're not like, of course not everyone has to put pan ka thuk on their portfolio, but like definitely understand how you bring your personality out in the portfolio. If you're good at illustrations, maybe make it an illustrative portfolio. If you're someone who's very technical in your thoughts, very calculative, like maybe you can bring that out in your portfolio. For me, it was quite a mixture of being free with my expression, but also very analytical in my thoughts, right?
yeah.
So I try to express that. Yeah.
So I have one
So
more question. I think it will help both of us because anyway, as designers, like in our beginning years, we're always preparing our portfolio to get into an ID and then to get a graduation project, then to get a job. So as we are
yeah.
also working on a portfolio, I have a question for you. So as designers, there's a very long process that we follow, like from thinking about the project and then also, okay, fine, I drew 500 sketches to get onto that one idea. Do you think we should put up everything in our portfolio?
Mm-mm.
Or also,
Okay.
I don't know, I mean, is like, how should it be? Because we in NID we have learned, okay, that we need to document our process at every stage. Like he does
Yeah.
that, right? But
हम्म
not everybody wants to see the whole process, right?
Yeah, that's true. Exactly. And that's the key. Like, not everyone wants to see everything.
हम्म
You should design your portfolio or the project keeping in mind your audience, right? Um, who are you designing the portfolio for? Is it, is it for your own expression? Like, do you want your portfolio project to be something that people see and instantly recognize as your work, right? Maybe then it's all about, what you really felt was important in your design process, right? But a lot of the times it's about, okay, if you're making a portfolio for a job interview, right? Then you need to think of the context in which someone will be looking at your portfolio, right? If it's a hiring manager, right, what are they looking for in that 20 seconds in which they flip through your portfolio or scroll through your portfolio? What are the things that are really going to anchor them into, like, oh, this person, yes, might be fit for the job, right?
And
So it's all about anchor points.
how does the context change? Because I prepared a portfolio and then like even for him, our graduation project ka portfolio was working fine. But in the full-time wala, it just didn't, really perform. So full-time jobs ke liye, what are people looking at? And if you don't know, then how will you figure out if you are applying?
Yeah. No, so I think, from my conversations with my seniors at Microsoft and all, I think when you're an intern, okay, or when you're applying for an internship or maybe a graduate program position, people want to see, they want to understand your personality. They want to understand they obviously know that you might not have a lot of experience. They want to see how you think, how like you're able to, are you a crazy thinker? If you are a crazy thinker, can you bring it back and, ground yourself a bit, right? Or, are you someone who is very analytical? What's your personality like? They look for all that. how much diligence do you put into your process, right?
Yeah.
So I think when you skim through a portfolio, you instantly recognize uh, what type of an individual has made this portfolio. And then it's not about whether your portfolio is bad or good. It's just about whether you fit with the company. I would never say
Yeah.
ki this is the right way or this is the wrong way to make a portfolio.
Mhm.
And I strongly believe that you should make your portfolio your own way, because then it, like, of course, the companies that pick you up are the ones that you will align with best. This is what
Yeah.
I believe in,
सही है ये बात.
right?
Yes.
Huh. And there will be, because some companies will want to see, okay, how well is this person in narrating the entire project from start to finish. More about the impact. They want to see the impact. Okay, problem kya tha? What is this person's solution? And then, how they came to it. Other companies will want to go more in depth and talk about the entire process and the struggles and, what wireframes were, like didn't work, right? What wireframes were, what didn't work, right?
ऑल्सो
हाँ,
अभी मैंने एक आर्टिकल पढ़ा था जिसमें उन्होंने बताया था कि एक स्किल बेस्ड पोर्टफोलियो और एक नरेटिव बेस्ड पोर्टफोलियो में क्या डिफरेंस होता है. मतलब मोस्ट ऑफ द
हाँ,
टाइम्स आई हैव सीन कि पीपल जिस तरीके से प्रोजेक्ट का कंटेंट क्यूरेट करते हैं वो बताते हैं कि मेरे को रेंडर्स आते हैं, मेरे को स्केचिंग करना आता है, मेरे को वायर फ्रेम बनाने आते हैं. तो द पोर्टफोलियो का प्रोजेक्ट का कंटेंट इज अलाइंड इन दैट वे. लेकिन
हम्म.
क्या ऐसा होना चाहिए क्या कि एक नरेशन बना के एक स्टोरी के फॉर्मेट में हमको बताना चाहिए कि हमको क्या आता है क्या नहीं आता?
So my initial portfolio was more skills oriented. Okay, the one that I used to apply for Microsoft initially. Okay, but during the interviews, it got shortlisted, obviously, because like people see that, okay, this person has made a storyboard, this person has, like created user flows and created UI as well. So then they think, okay, let's shortlist them for the interview and then see, like how he narrates the story, right? The problem there is, however, when you're talking about your project in the interview, it's
Mhm.
super important to have a good narrative and a good story. And
Mhm.
normally what we do is scroll through the, like project, and if it's not arranged in a manner that tells the story as well, then
Mhm.
the story you're telling is not going to match the visuals you're presenting,
Yeah.
right?
Right, right.
So, right, that's why, and this caused a lot of problems in my interviews. So my portfolio got shortlisted for, I think, 11 different companies, but only two or three of them, moved me forward into the next round after the interviews. And a lot of the feedback was that in your portfolio presentation, we were not able to connect, your problem to your solution, and we got lost in the middle, right? And this, it was a big thing for me, because of course, when you're getting so many rejections one after the other, it does affect you mentally as well. You start feeling, oh, maybe I'm not good at this. Maybe, again, like this might not be the thing for me, right? It happens to everyone, I think.
Mhm.
But
Right.
like तो उसके बाद I did a lot of research. I'm not the sort of person to give up without a fight. तो
Right.
मैं बहुत research किया था about, again I went back to, okay, like how did I used to tell my story in architecture competitions, right? How did I used to, I was also getting into script writing for like how people do for movies and stuff. So I had read a few books about uh, screenwriting and script writing. So all the storytelling aspects that were there, I started applying those in my portfolio. Okay, like just in script writing ऐसे एक method है that you divide the thing into three acts. Act one is where you introduce a problem. Act two is where you talk about how you're solving it. Act three is about how you're, the conclusion, the
Mhm.
climax of the problem. And
That's a very
between each of,
interesting trick. दैट्स अ वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग.
yeah,
मैं भी इसको फॉलो करूंगा. मैं भी इस तरीके की कुछ किताबें पढ़ने
हाँ,
ट्राई करूंगा अभी.
हाँ.
प्लीज.
और इसमें the see, like I feel everyone knows about this act 1, act 2, act 3 structure,
हाँ.
intuitively. हाँ, introduce करो problem, then कैसे solution हुआ and finally कैसे खत्म हुआ. But what people don't understand is ये act 1 act 2 act 3 के बीच में twists डालना पड़ता है,
अच्छा.
right? To transition from one to the other, you need to have a twist. You need to have like a challenge कि अच्छा ये problem था and मैं solve करने गया, लेकिन this was when I did a little bit of research, I realized, oh, it's much deeper than what I anticipated, right? Then you're showing, then like once you've stated that, oh, the problem was much more complex than what I initially thought, then you're saying, okay, that's why I went to do so much research. That's why I had to do this, or user interviews इसलिए किया था, right? So those twists are really instrumental in telling a good story, right? So, and there are a lot of books that discuss this. Like if you want, I can, you
Yeah,
can
please,
add it in the notes.
please recommend a few books.
I think there was one called Who Killed the Cat? Something like this. Who Killed the Cat, which is I might get the name wrong, but cat तो उस title में cat था,
We
ठीक है,
can add it into
right?
show notes. We can add it into our show
Yeah.
notes. Yes.
So, yeah, then there's storytelling arcs. If you search in Google about storytelling arcs, it will show you how different arcs are generated. कहाँ पे twist डालना चाहिए. When you're building up a story, right? How do you build it up? Not the solution, the middle part, and the climax won't all be at the same level all the time, right? So, वो जो, different sort of, I think, like intensity of the narrative change होता है through your portfolio. You really think about that after reading these books and understanding how they do it in the movies, or while writing storybooks and stuff. So all this knowledge I started applying a little bit, as well as my knowledge from creating architecture portfolios and stuff like that. But एक बहुत अच्छा website which I found, which really helped to figure out this narrative aspect, was called cofolios.com, I think. Cofolios.
Okay.
Cofolios, right?
Okay.
And इसमें क्या है? They've collected all the portfolios of people who've worked in Google or Microsoft or Apple, Spotify, and they've put it together so that you can look at them one by one and start figuring out the pattern. And the pattern I saw was, yeah, and the pattern I saw was हाँ कि people don't show everything, like ये जब portfolio दिखाते they don't show everything, and like they maybe show 30% of what they've done, but that 30% helps knit together a very strong story, right? ठीक है. But also at the end, they include some link to a research file or a research documentation. They might include a link to a Figma file, right? So they are like, whoever's looking at the portfolio, if they want to go in deeper and see the entire project, how it's been put together, they can always refer to the research documentation and so on. But जो portfolio है, the portfolio project, just by reading the headings, right, you are able to understand the narrative of the like thing. Headings ही narrative बनाते हैं. They don't make the heading like.
This will help not just designers who are building portfolio, but everyone, because eventually corporates में PPT is a storytelling thing. We are telling what we have done, हमने क्या उखाड़ लिया.
Yeah.
So
हाँ. Exactly. Matlab, when even in a PPT or when you're making your portfolio, instead of putting the heading as research, right? Why don't you put maybe you can add research, put it a bit smaller, right? But make the main statement like the question of the research, or the main insight from the research. So when someone's scrolling through it, they read that question or that insight and they're like, oh wow, maybe I should go in a bit more in depth and read this part, right? Or you can even just say, for example, if you're applying for a job interview, right? So hiring managers, they do have like a set of keywords, right, that they're looking for, right, when they're skimming through your portfolio. If those keywords are part of that main statement for each heading, so it becomes very easy for them to, shortlist, and it anchors them to your portfolio basically. कि, okay, line में इतने सारे keywords दिख रहे हैं headings में, right? So this person might be a good candidate for this position, right? So these are some strategies, right? I won't say this is part of storytelling. Of course, it's part of storytelling, but ये keyword aspect I used a lot in architecture competitions as well. मैं judges का background देखता था. I would look at, what is the most recent research paper that they've written. और उस research paper से terms उठाता था and I'd put it in my architecture competition. So हर judge का एक एक paragraph में they'd be like, oh, ये बंदा इस topic के बारे में लिखा है जो मेरे को भी like I'm also very passionate about, right? So and this would like help them get anchored to my portfolio, like that architecture sheet. Same thing applies for portfolios, I feel. And any form of even PPT, right? If you're in a place and you're working and you're hearing certain terms getting used over and over again, discussions में, उसको डाल दो PPT में, like maybe it'll help them, get their attention back to when you're listening. I feel,
Yeah.
of course, this is also part of information design, right?
हाँ,
So,
yes.
Yeah. Coming to information design, Krishna had some questions.
या तो अभी इंफॉर्मेशन डिजाइन के ऊपर है, तो एक बार हमको बता दो कि इंफॉर्मेशन डिजाइन एक्चुअली होता क्या है। इसमें जो इंफॉर्मेशन डिजाइनर्स होते हैं जब वो इंडस्ट्री में जाते हैं तो वो करते क्या हैं और कहाँ कहाँ जॉब उनको मिलता है, क्या कैसे होता है ये सब।
So see, information design बहुत vast है. Like as we talked about at the beginning, it is, it can range from a poster to a brand identity to, an application design to data visualization. It's very vast, right? If you see, like when I was studying in NID, I feel that there were maybe 2 to 3 directions that people started going in, right? One direction, obviously, after information design is to go into UX design or service design, right? Taking the information you're getting from users, using that information to give back a good experience in terms of using an application or a product, a digital product, right? And that you can definitely go from information design into UX design and in service design roles. Another, I feel, would be the data visualization side of it. And I would say, like, a lot of the people who go from information design into core data visualization, they do have a good background in coding, right? They do have a good background using Python and all that, but it's not necessary, right? A lot of the top information designers that we study in information design, right? They have backgrounds in architecture or fine arts, right?
तो जैसे जो पब्लिकेशंस होते हैं, न्यूज़ चैनल्स होते हैं, न्यूज़पेपर्स होते हैं, जो उनको डेटा बताना होता है, ये जो विजुअलाइज करते हैं, ये भी इंफॉर्मेशन डिजाइनर्स ही होते हैं।
हाँ, ये भी इंफॉर्मेशन डिजाइनर्स ही करते हैं, राइट? तो एंड ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट है एक्चुअली, बिकॉज सी व्हाट आई वांट टू ब्रिंग अप देयर इज कि व्हेन यू आर क्रिएटिंग एन इंफॉर्मेशन डिजाइन फॉर अ न्यूज़पेपर एंड व्हेन यू आर क्रिएटिंग एन इंफॉर्मेशन डिजाइन फॉर अ वेबसाइट, दोनों बहुत अलग चीज है, राइट? If the article is on the website, you'll design the information visualization a bit differently because of the context in which it is being seen, right? If I'm going to read a newspaper, I'm waking up on a Sunday, breakfast के साथ table पे बैठा, I'll have the newspaper in front of me, right? I'll be flipping through it in a more leisurely manner. तो information जैसे मैं receive करूंगा, that will also be different, right? तो design भी थोड़ा change हो जाएगा. So हाँ, information designers are there also for newspapers, magazines, like जो documentaries बनाते हैं Netflix and all, उसमें भी जो information design होता है, right? That's also done by designers. I won't say information designers, okay? Because information design is a stream, that we say in college in NID. बाहर जाके we become designers only, right?
सही है।
हाँ, right. So design is, that is one side we can go into. So and finally another side I want to talk about, which, like, of course, you're talking about industry, and industry जब बोलते हैं हम, we think of, corporates, Microsoft or so on, right? Like that's the immediate thing. But I feel that as a designer and as, especially if you're studying to be creative and innovative, right? One thing that you might want to keep in mind is कि you create your own career path, you create your own job role, right? Right, because when you are applying for a job interview, right? You are kind of boxed into what that job role wants, right? But I feel, in when you're studying design, there's a lot of things that you learn and a lot of things that you add because of your own experiences, right?
Right, right,
So
right.
just say, I don't want to limit, information design ka opportunities to data visualization or, UX design. I would say that someone who studied information design or design of any sort, for that matter, can, think of creating their own startup, right?
Right,
Think
right.
of creating their own, like service that they can provide to other, like start their own company, okay, freelance or, a small business, whatever they want, right? There's so many different opportunities that, what you learn in information design you can carry forward into building your own business as well, right?
One of the designers
So,
had given me an analogy for this. उन्होंने मेरे को बोला
hmm,
था कि सी इट एज एमबीए। एमबीए जो कोर्स होता है वो कोई भी कर सकता है, एक डेंटिस्ट, शेफ, इंजीनियर कोई भी कर सकता है। और बिजनेस
हाँ,
का नॉलेज लेने के बाद में वो अपने कोई भी फील्ड को या कहीं और भी बिजनेस डेवलप कर सकते हैं। तो डिजाइन इज ऑल्सो
हाँ,
सिमिलर, कि डिजाइन थिंकिंग, डिजाइन का नॉलेज एक बार आपको आने के बाद में आप उसको किसी भी इंडस्ट्री में, किसी भी फील्ड में, कहीं पे भी कुछ भी यूटिलाइज कर सकते हो उस चीज
Yeah.
को।
एग्जैक्टली आई फील वो काफी important point है इनफैक्ट,
हम्म।
like I don't think when we talk about studying design we think about the job roles,
हाँ,
right?
यस।
क्योंकि अभी job roles बन चुके हैं, but वो design is like a way of thought, right? जो you can use anywhere.
बट
And in
रिदित,
fact, we can,
हाँ,
you were saying something.
नहीं मैं तो बस ये बोल रहा था कि ये सब सही है, बट सैड ट्रूथ इज बहुत सारे स्टूडेंट्स यहाँ पे जब एजुकेशन करते हैं तब स्टूडेंट लोन लेके आते हैं और उसको चुकाने
हाँ,
के लिए फिर हमको जॉब करने ही पड़ते हैं जो इंडस्ट्री में अवेलेबल
हाँ,
होते हैं।
that's true.
I was just adding to like इसी का ही आंसर है कि there are so many startups and they're ready to pay the kind of amount that would help you to repay your loan, and they're just looking for passionate people who want to work for a cause. So, and also startups are working on different stuff. So like even in our placements, Aether came, and the cause, the kind of product that they have. So many people who would be interested in that can go to that company. They are also paying really well.
हम्म।
So it's
Yeah.
not like a go to big corporates like we are. So
वैसे वैसे स्टार्टर्स, बिगनर्स इन इंडस्ट्रियल, बिगनर्स इन इंफॉर्मेशन डिजाइनर्स, तो जब
Hmm.
जो फ्रेश ग्रेजुएट्स होते हैं उनका अंदाजन कितना पैकेज या कितना सैलरी उनको
I
एक्सपेक्ट किया
don't think
जाता
there
है?
is a limit उनके में तो. I don't
नहीं,
like.
Hey,
मतलब
I mean, so it varies, okay? Like I don't want to say a specific number, right? Because again, I feel UX design जो लोग करते हैं, ठीक है, of course they do get a better package,
हम्म,
but then there are people who go into core information design
हम्म,
and maybe the package might be a bit less, but then that is they're so passionate about it, right? And whenever information designers come to teach us, they tell us this only कि हाँ, like you can do information design, core information design, package low होगा. You can do UX design, package थोड़ा high होगा. Now it's up to you to decide what you want, right?
दैट इज ट्रू
Um,
फॉर आई थिंक ऑल डिजाइन इंडस्ट्रीज। जब कोर में काम करते हैं तो, बट दैट हैज टू डू विद मार्केट डिमांड एंड सप्लाई। अगर मार्केट में नहीं है
exactly.
तो
हाँ, हाँ,
सैलरी नहीं
yeah,
मिलती। अ,
हाँ.
Yeah. Also, at last, I have a question for you to just sum it up. Like for you as a designer, what is that one statement that you would want to make as a designer? What is your ideology? What are your principles?
Hmm. Okay, I think I have a few, but जो सबसे important है for me is like everyone's always telling you कि push your limits, push your comfort zone, and I believe that. लेकिन there's one part that I want to add to that as a designer is push your comfort zone if it excites you, right? ठीक है. We're always as designers there's so many different directions in which we can go in, and all of them would be pushing our comfort zone, but uh, you need to find out that one thing that excites you so that you can really you know become a sort of expert or a thought leader in that space,
Yeah.
right? For me, for example, right now, what excites me is the possibilities of neuro inclusivity.
Yeah.
जो मैं पहले when I applied for NID, right? That was one thing that had, I really wanted to get into. It's something that has affected me my entire life, and it excites me that the knowledge I have could help people, have a maybe better life or a somewhat easier life that in education or in work than what I did growing up, right? ठीक है. So I'm working on that for my graduation project too, in Microsoft as well. And definitely, but it all comes back, like I won't say everyone should do this, right? It might not excite everyone, right? Like Tanuja, right? You are very good at illustrations and graphic design, and you are always illustrating throughout the day, right?
Yes.
You have a sort of excitement and passion about that most people might not match up to, right? So
Yeah.
if anyone would be to push their comfort zone and their limits and make a little bit of a dent in the world through illustration and UX, that might be you, right?
Yeah.
That might not be a suitable comfort zone to push for me, right?
Right.
Krishna, it might be completely different. So yeah, push your comfort zone, push your limits as long as it excites you. That is
Yes.
my idea. Yeah.
ये मेरे साथ एक सिमिलर एक्सपीरियंस हुआ था। तो मैंने
Hmm.
एक कुछ साल पहले, 2-3 साल पहले, मैंने एक एनिमेशन का फ्रीलांस जॉब उठा लिया था, क्योंकि मेरे को पैसों की
Hmm.
जरूरत थी और मैंने सोचा कि व्हाट्स देयर, मतलब ट्राई तो कर ही सकते हैं। आफ्टर इफेक्ट्स ही है,
हाँ.
और ट्यूटोरियल वगैरह देख के सीख सकते हैं और फिर करके देखते हैं। और
Hmm.
पे वाज गुड एज वेल। तो मैंने ट्राई किया और मैं पुश करके कंप्लीट कर भी पाया और मैंने डिलीवर भी
Hmm.
किया। बट मेरा एक्सपीरियंस उतना एक्साइटिंग नहीं था, मेरे को उसमें ज्यादा मजा नहीं आया। तो
Hmm.
आई अग्री विद यू कि पुश योर कंफर्ट जोन व्हेनेवर इट एक्साइट्स यू। तो
Yeah.
ये सही सही सच
Yeah.
है।
Similarly, I was getting money for making portraits, but it might be sad for people to hear, but I hate making portraits. I
Yeah.
People want me to make them look like, exactly like the other person, but a prettier version of them. Dude, if you have a mole,
Hmm.
it will look like a mole with hair. So I mean, you can't do anything with that, right? So
हम्म।
I don't like
Yeah.
making portraits. I stopped making portraits so many years back.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean that also brings up a good point कि जब डिजाइन में empathize बोलते हैं ना, empathize with your users and all, but वो empathize करके don't lose out on yourself, right? कि
Yeah.
I'm only doing what people are wanting me to do.
Yeah.
Like I जैसे मैं आज साइकिलिंग करके आया, right? And उस साइकिल राइड पे I got so many thoughts about design and all that I would not have gotten just in front of my computer reading books, right? So वो keep stay honest to yourself, do things that excite you and learn from those rather than thinking, oh बस ये बुक पढ़ूंगा तो हो जाएगा सब कुछ,
सही।
right?
गाड़ी
That's the thing.
चलानी है तो गाड़ी चला के ही सीखनी पड़ेगी, किताब पढ़ के तो गाड़ी चलाना नहीं सीख पाओगे आप।
हाँ, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
दैट वाज अ ग्रेट कॉन्वर्जेशन रिदित, बहुत मजा आया आपसे बात करके।
Thank
And
you. Thank you.
yeah,
Same,
thank you.
likewise.
And I'm really grateful to you for being here. Guys, there might be some glitches in the sound because we are just started off and we are not even investing in the infrastructure for having the clear sound. But our motivation is to bring some good content to you, to motivate you as a designer, and nothing more than that right now at this point of time. So if there are glitches, if the video is long, if the audio is longer than usual, I am not really very apologetic about it because I think we are trying to curate some good content. Ridhit has given some really great insights, and we don't want to cut down on any information that might be useful for someone else, if not you. But yeah, thank you so much, Ridhit, everyone,
थैंक यू सो
Krishna.
मच। थैंक
And
यू। अच्छा मजा आया बहुत।
yeah,
चलिए,
cool.
बाय
Bye.
बाय।